Welcome back. This is MC Codger saying welcome back. This is episode 55A. It's so complicated we're going to divide it into 3 episodes, I think. And well, looky there. There's my lighthouse that I built. We'll look at that later. Right now, we want to fully automate that potato farm that we showed you in episode 54. Remember, we had to push buttons and had to push them in a certain sequence in order to get it to work. And I wanted to automate that. In order to do that, I had to put on some redstone mojo. And I did. What you can see here is my redstone workbench, I guess, for lack of a better term. And so what I want to do today is get started on building that that automated, and there it is right behind you. But in order to get started on that, we need to build a few things. First, I want to build a comparator. Now we have built we've built repeaters before, and probably could do this whole thing with repeaters. But remember, to build a repeater, we had a bit of redstone, some redstone torches. That's a repeater. Well, to build a comparator is a little different. We'll pull this redstone out of here, and we're going to use some nether quartz, and we're going to use torches in this pattern. And there is our repeater. So there we have a redstone, or a comparator, I'm sorry, or a redstone comparator. There we go. Now, and one other thing I need to do is I'm going to make a redstone block. Just fill your whole thing with redstone, and there you get your redstone block, a block of redstone, and that's what we want here. Now, I've got too many things in my inventory as usual, so let me put a few things back in my chest so that I've got a little bit more room. There we go. Okay. Now, let me pick up my redstone, and let me show you what we do with our comparator. Now, when I made my little workbench, I put signs up. This is the comparator. And what it does is, well, it compares. As you can see, when you lay it down, the number 1 input is nearest to you, and the output is farthest away from you. What it does is it compares the number 1 input, which comes in here, to the number 2 input, which comes in on this side. It compares those two values, and depending on what the comparison is, it will determine what your output's going to be. So if I just click this switch on, now the strength of this redstone signal is going through 1, 2, 3 blocks. So it's got a strength of -3 here. And it's comparing that to your number 2 signal. Well, I can come over here and turn this one on, and that gives me a strength of -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a strength of -6. Number 1 input is still stronger than number 2 input, so it's going to output through the output. But watch what happens when I turn this switch on. Aha! Now my strength coming from this switch is only -1, -2, which is less of a signal than the number 1, or more of a signal than the number 1 coming in. And so if this is more, if the 2 input is more than the 1 input, it's not going to output. Okay? Unless we activate this little subtractor button. What in the world is that? Well, you right-click on that, it activates the subtractor button. And what that does is it then subtracts the value going into the number 2 input from the number 1 input and gives you the resulting output. So if I turn this off, notice what's happening here. I've got a -6 coming into here. I've got a -3 coming into here. So it subtracts the -6 from the -3, and that gives you this output here, which is weak because you're subtracting these two values. And I know it's not really an absolute -6 value. That's just what I'm calling it for the sake of illustration. So it's subtracting this value, the second input, from the first input and giving you an output equal to that value. And on a practical level, and there you see now it's stronger, so it's not putting out anything. On a practical level, what that allows us to do, I'll show you over here. Let me just turn those off, and let me go over here. We can make a timed pulse using only repeaters. You know, remember we did that. I think maybe I know we did it with a rail cart. But let me turn this on and watch what happens. Okay, the repeater signal goes through those repeaters, and it energizes our light, goes back through, and so we've had a repeating signal now. Okay, I've got it going back through and starting all over again using only repeaters. But the on signal is on about the same time as the off signal, and so you're a little bit limited with regard to that. What I can do over here, notice I have added my comparator. So, and this is going to be the basis. This little block here is going to be the basis of my signal that I'm going to use. I've got the comparator, then I've got repeaters facing this way, then I've got a redstone bridge to repeaters facing this way. They output right here, which means they go back into the comparator in the number 2 input, and I have the subtraction button on. So watch what happens when I turn this on. Okay, we are sending our signal through. Now, that was the first one. Now watch how short the duration of the pulse is. Got a much shorter pulse duration, separated by a longer off pulse. And that you can do using a comparator. You can't really do that as well using just repeaters. Similar situation here, only because of the space of it, it's pretty much similar on to off. And that depends on this switch staying on. Okay. So, how is that going to work? Well, I'm going to have to use one more logic gate, and that's what I need to show you next. There are a bunch of different logic gates, and hold on a second, let me turn it to daylight so we can see what we're doing here. Okay, and here's my workshop. I got all kind of logic gates. I've got a reset NOR latch, which I'm not even going to talk about right now. There are several ways of doing that. I've got a, what do I have? I have a 3-way switch using an OR gate and a T flip-flop. We might look at that at some point. That's pretty cool, just on its own. But what we're going to need is right here. It's the OR gate. Okay, here's how you build an OR gate. Just take 2 blocks. We'll put a torch on top of the one, and then the rear block, we'll put a torch on the side of it with some redstone on top. So you see, this torch is always holding this torch off. Okay, and then this is activated by this torch, and this line goes to whatever you're trying to fire. In this case, I use a piston. Okay, so this front block can be activated from either side, from either one of these switches. So if any one of these switches go on, it activates the piston. Doesn't matter which one. It will activate the piston if one or more of these are on. That's an OR gate, and that's what we're going to use for our device over here. There are a lot of other gates, but for right now, what we're going to need is we're going to need that signal pulse using a comparator, and we're going to need an OR gate. Well, more than one OR gate in our build, and that's what we're going to do next time. So, and I hope that's going to be soon. So until then, this is MC Codger, Redstone Mojo, saying we will see you next time.